Well, this debate was more like it. Pence won this debate decisively and overwhelmingly, and it has important implications for the Trump-Clinton race and for Donald's candidacy. If I had to use one word to describe Pence, it would be earnest, and another one would be sincere. If I had to use one word for Kaine, it would be supercilious and hucksterish. There was a kind of gotcha, aha, gotcha trap now, constantly repeating the same stuff, constantly making the same arguments even when they didn't make sense, about Kaine's manner. Knowing the Clintons, I'll bet that Bill and Hillary sat down with Kaine before this debate and said, you better be aggressive, you better make this point, you better make that point. I wouldn't be surprised if they even sat in on debate coaching sessions and interrupted him, said, no, hit him on this, hit him again on this. And I think Kaine was nervous. I think he felt he was sort of auditioning for Hillary Clinton. And as such, he was artificially combative, awkward, and not at all adjusting to what was in the room and what was happening vis-a-vis Pence, but hearing in the back of his mind Hillary and Bill hollering at him for not being aggressive enough. And the entire thing was you probably couldn't stand to spend an hour with Kaine, but you'd love to spend an evening with Pence. And I think that makes a real difference. First of all, in the way people react to the two men. The strident, aggressive, take no prisoners, catch 'em, gotcha prosecutor was Kaine. And the nice guy to get along with was Pence. And that's the opposite of the image of the candidates. Trump is supposed to be the aggressive one, and yet he chose Mike Pence. And that's a tremendously positive thing about him and says volumes of positive stuff. I think that also by putting Kaine on for an hour and a half, he had to endlessly repeat the same stuff over and over again. The comments about Mexicans being rapists, the failure to release his tax returns, the idea that he praised Putin as a great leader. We could all probably do it in our sleep now after he repeated it over and over and over again. And after a while, it becomes tinny and hollow, and you realize there's nothing behind it, just a few out-of-context statements made in interviews where only the words were counted, not the ultimate meaning. Now, with that in mind, I want to vent my frustrations a little bit here about the points that Kaine made in the debate. First of all, let's get straight that Trump did not say Mexicans are rapists and murderers. He said that Mexicans and drug dealers. He said that many of the people who came to the United States from Mexico were drug dealers and rapists. And that's true. A goodly proportion of those who have been arrested for those crimes, particularly in the southwest United States, did come from Mexico. A disproportionate number by far. Now, almost a quarter of the people in federal prison right now are illegal immigrants, and that does not count anyone who's there because of an immigration violation. When Kaine said that it's un-American and unconstitutional to discriminate against immigrants based on where they come from, that is the biggest load of BS I can hear. The basis of American immigration law, since it was passed in 1926, has been national origin quotas, to let a certain number in from each country based solely on describing where they came from. And it is the current policy of the United States not to admit refugees or people that come from the three nations we recognize as terrorist sponsors at the moment. And those are Sudan, North Korea, and Iraq, I think, or Syria. I forget which one the other one is. But the idea of discrimination based on national origins is deeply embedded in our immigration law. The idea of Trump's business dealings with Putin. Well, come on. Vladimir Putin paid Bill Clinton $1 million that went into Hillary Clinton's checking account to vote in favor of the deal that permitted Putin to take over 20% of the uranium deposits in the United States. And that's the front page article of the New York Times made that point. Next to that, Trump's business dealings, whatever they are, pale by comparison. Kaine made much about Trump's position on nuclear weapons. Well, let's be clear what he said. He said that it may be in our national interest for certain countries that are our allies or friends to develop nuclear weapons because it is a more credible deterrent. If South Korea wants to protect the city of Seoul and Japan wants to protect the city of Tokyo, which is more of a deterrent to a North Korean or Chinese attack? The United States' threat that it will destroy the country and therefore risk its own cities, or Japan's threat or South Korea's threat? And the idea of non-proliferation is only our enemies get nuclear weapons, our friends don't. The only friends who've gotten nuclear weapons are Britain and France at the very start of the process. He said, why don't we let Japan and South Korea defend themselves against the nuclear threat of North Korea and China by developing their own nuclear weapons? An eminently sensible position. The argument that he wouldn't defend Israel unless it paid. His view has always been that he wants our allies to contribute more to their own defense, and that includes Israel. Not that he's not going to defend them, but he wants them to contribute more, and he wants to drive a hard bargain. What's the matter with that? The idea that NATO is obsolete. He said that it's obsolete in the sense that it's focused exclusively on Russian imperialism and incursions, that it needs to adjust more to a global terrorist threat, as it did when it came together to punish Al-Qaeda for the hit on the World Trade Center in 2001. Perfectly reasonable position. When Keynes said that Hillary has a great record of bipartisan leadership in the Senate, Hillary had no record in the Senate. All he's talking about is some unanimously passed bills that related to 9/11 funding for New York. When Bush wanted to cut back heavy 9/11 funding and limit it to New York, it was Schumer, the other senator, who faced him down and went crazy about it. And Bush said, how much do you need? And Schumer said $50 billion. And Bush said, you've got it. And Hillary either wasn't in the meeting or was silent throughout. And in the Senate, if you read our book, Armageddon, How Trump Can Beat Hillary, you'll see that her entire record in the Senate was passing nonsense resolutions like congratulating the soccer team or the lacrosse team, or renaming a courthouse after Thurgood Marshall, or honoring Alexander Hamilton, or honoring Harriet Tubman, stuff that was non-substantive. She didn't pass a single substantive bill in all of her 8 years in the United States Senate. So I just want those points to be out there. Now, there was one other issue that came up in the debate that bears elaboration. Keynes said that Hillary would raise the threshold on the Social Security payroll tax, and that would make Social Security solvent. What that means is that right now you pay Social Security taxes on the first $118,000 of income. So if you're self-employed, you pay 12.6% of $118,000, or about $14,000. But under their proposal, if you're self-employed and you make $150,000, you're going to have to pay $17,000. And if you make $200,000, you're going to have to pay $24,000. If you make $300,000, you're going to have to pay $36,000 in additional taxes. Huge, big, enormous tax increases. What it means practically is that if you make more than $118,000 a year, your top tax bracket will not be the current 40%. But if you're employed by someone else, it'll be 46%. And if you're self-employed, it will be 52%, plus your state tax, plus your local tax. So in New York City, for example, self-employed people who make more than $118,000 a year would be paying an effective tax rate of 60%. That deserves explanation. Even Obama wouldn't go that far. And can you think of the impact that tax is going to have on middle-class families? It's unbelievable. So I thought the debate was good. I hope Trump was watching. I hope he learned something from the debate. And I do hope that Pence becomes our vice president. He'd make a very good one. Thanks for watching.